Why we forget who we vote for, the secret that controls democracy. Hello, curious minds. Have you ever wondered why, election after election, it feels like we keep making the same mistakes? Broken promises, forgotten scandals, and yet we put our trust in them all over again. Today, we're not going to talk about politics. No, we're going on a much deeper journey. We're going to dive into the human brain, into our psychology, to understand why our political memory is so fragile. And I promise you this, by the time you finish this video, the way you see the news, the campaigns, and even your own decisions will be changed forever. We all know the basic idea, right? It's the classic bread and circuses. A politician makes a huge blunder, a scandal breaks out, but a few months later, they open a new bridge or announce a small economic relief package, and suddenly, the anger just melts away. It's short-term memory at its finest. The most recent event carries far more weight than the past, no matter how serious it was. And it's not just about major scandals. Think about campaign promises. A candidate promises to lower taxes, create jobs, improve healthcare. 4 years go by, and maybe none of it has been delivered. But in the new campaign, they come back with fresh promises, with renewed energy, and our brain, incredibly, focuses on the new promise, not the track record of the broken ones. It's like forgiving that friend who's always late just because today, for once, they showed up on time. This memory flaw isn't a modern glitch. It's practically a survival trait. Imagine our ancestors on the savannah. It was much more useful to remember where you found fruit yesterday than the lion that almost ate you a year ago. The brain evolved to prioritize immediate information relevant to right now survival. The problem is that this same operating system, so useful for surviving in the wild, plays tricks on us in the complexity of a democratic society. So we have scandals that are forgotten, promises that are renewed, and a brain designed for the present moment. This is the tip of the iceberg, what everyone more or less suspects. But if this is what we see on the surface, what secret engines are driving it from below? And here comes the first big revelation. It's not just that we forget, it's that our brain actively rewrites the past to align with our present decisions. This phenomenon, known in psychology, could be described as post-vote rationalization. If you voted for someone, your mind will work overtime to justify that decision, downplaying their mistakes and amplifying their successes. It's not that you don't remember the scandal, it's that your brain turns down the volume on it so you don't have to feel like you made a mistake. Understanding this is an incredibly powerful tool. On one hand, it allows you to analyze others and yourself. If you see someone defending a politician tooth and nail despite the evidence, it's not that they're stupid, it's that their brain is protecting their own past decision. That's the red flag, the risk, falling into that same trap yourself. But the opportunity is to use it for your own protection. Before an election, instead of asking, do I like this candidate now? Ask yourself, what past decisions of mine are making me see this candidate in a positive or negative light? It forces you to be your own devil's advocate. There's an invisible rule that governs much of this, confirmation bias. Our brain isn't a truth seeker, it's a confirmation seeker. It actively looks for evidence that supports what we already believe and discards anything that contradicts it. It's like when you buy a certain brand of car and suddenly you see that brand everywhere. It's not that there are more of them, it's that your brain is now filtering for them and pointing them out to you. It's exactly the same with politics. You only see the news and data that confirm that your side is the good side. And this brings us to a fascinating mental factory defect called the availability heuristic. Basically, our brain assumes that if something is easy to recall, it must be very important or common. The media and politicians know this. That's why they repeat a simple slogan or a powerful image ad nauseum. Not so you'll understand it, but so it stays available in your mind. The strategy to counter this? Be proactive. When you hear an idea repeated many times, pause and ask yourself, is this really important, or does it just seem that way because I've heard it 1,000 times? Force yourself to actively seek out the counter-information, the stuff that doesn't reach you as easily. In ancient times, in small tribes, loyalty to the group was the key to survival. Questioning the leader or the group consensus could mean expulsion and therefore death. We've inherited that tribal loyalty instinct. We support our party or side almost as if it were our family, even when they're wrong. The practical takeaway is brutally simple. Your political loyalty shouldn't be unconditional like family loyalty. Treat your political ideas like scientific hypotheses, not articles of faith. If the facts disprove them, have the courage to abandon them. So if we put all this together, what's the key real-life takeaway? It's this. Your memory and your political opinions are not a passive reflection of reality. They are an active construction by your brain to protect you, to make you feel consistent, and to keep you loyal to your tribe. Therefore, the most radical and honest act you can perform is to doubt your own certainties, especially the ones that make you feel the most comfortable. Knowing this gives you immense power. You stop being a passive spectator of politics and become an analyst of your own mind. But if you thought we had it all figured out, get ready, because this is where the story descends into true chaos. And here we enter the first great debate. Is this short memory a bug in the system that needs to be fixed, or is it actually a necessary feature? On one hand, you have those who say a healthy democracy demands informed voters who remember and punish corruption and incompetence. For them, what's at stake is accountability, the very quality of democracy itself. On the other hand, some argue that forgetting allows for governability. If people never forgave mistakes, no government could move forward. We'd live in a state of perpetual resentment. For them, what's at stake is stability and the ability to move on. There's a widespread myth, people are dumb, and that's why they forget. But this is false, and frankly, a bit arrogant. People don't forget because they're dumb. They forget because they're busy. Busy trying to make ends meet, taking care of their families, living their lives. Politics is just one small part of their universe. We love to believe in the dumb voter myth because it lets us feel smarter and absolves leaders of their responsibility to communicate clearly and act with integrity. And this leads us to a wonderful and terrible paradox. To punish a politician for their past lies, you need to remember them. But to remember them, you have to pay constant attention to politics. And if you pay constant attention to politics, you expose yourself to more manipulation, more polarization, and more bias. Think about it. To protect yourself from manipulation, you must expose yourself more to it. It's a dilemma with no easy solution. Now, let's get critical about something we all just accept, the idea that politicians get a clean slate every 4 years. Is that ethical? Think about it in any other area of life. Would you rehire a manager who bankrupted your company if they promised they'd get it right this time? Would you trust your life savings to someone who's already scammed you? Yet in politics, we accept this wiping the slate clean as normal. Isn't this an abdication of our responsibility as citizens? Another fascinating controversy is how the very concept of scandal has changed. 50 years ago, a scandal might have been a lie about economic policy. Today, it seems we've become immune to that. The scandals we really remember are the personal ones, the ones that are character attacks. We've shifted from debating managerial incompetence to debating the personal morality of leaders. And this completely changes the rules of the forgetting game. Deep down, the voter's short memory exposes a fundamental problem of the human condition, our desire to believe in something bigger than ourselves. We want to believe in leaders who can guide us in a better future in simple solutions. This desire is so powerful that it often leads us to voluntarily forget the evidence showing that leader is fallible, the future is uncertain, and the solutions are terribly complex. It's the eternal struggle between our hope and the harsh reality. As you can see, this isn't a simple topic. There are paradoxes, ethical dilemmas, and myths everywhere. There are no good guys or bad guys, just a complex system and an even more complex brain interacting in chaotic ways. You've survived the chaos. Now it's time to look at the details that separate the curious from the true connoisseurs. Let's start with the first expert detail. Political psychologists talk about something called motivated reasoning. It's not just that we forget or justify. It's that our ability to reason, our very intelligence, is put to work in service of our political beliefs. A highly intelligent person won't use their brain to find the truth, but rather to find more sophisticated and convincing arguments to defend their initial position, even if it's wrong. Intelligence becomes a weapon for self-deception. There's a concept in neuroscience called long-term potentiation. It sounds complicated, but the analogy is perfect. Imagine your brain is a grassy field. Every time you think a thought, it's like walking across that field, leaving a small path. If you repeat that thought, the path gets deeper. Over time, it becomes a highway. It's much easier and faster for your mental energy to travel down that highway than to forge a new path. That's why heavily repeated political ideas become automatic truths. Changing your mind is literally like trying to hack a new path through the undergrowth with a machete while a 5-lane highway sits right next to you. Everyone talks about cognitive biases, but few remember a silent hero, the economist Herbert Simon. In the 1950s, when everyone believed that humans made rational, logical decisions, he introduced a revolutionary idea, bounded rationality. He said that we aren't stupid, but that our minds have limits on time, information, and processing power. Because of this, we don't look for the optimal decision, but one that is good enough. This idea is the foundation of everything we understand today about why a voter cannot and is not expected to process all existing political information. Now, for a rebellious theory that turns everything on its head. Most people believe we vote based on ideas or policies, but a school of thought led by researchers like Christopher Aiken and Larry Bartels proposes that's not how it works. They say we first choose our political tribe, our team, based on our identity, where we live, our social class, our religion, and only after that do we adopt the opinions and beliefs of that tribe. It's not, I think this way, therefore I belong to this party, but rather, I belong to this party, therefore I think this way. It's an uncomfortable idea, but it explains a lot. Here's a scientific detail that flies in the face of our intuition. The University of Michigan study demonstrated something called the backfire effect. When a group of voters was presented with clear evidence that contradicted one of their deeply held political beliefs, not only did they not change their minds, but they clung to their original belief even more strongly. In other words, trying to correct false information with facts can actually make the belief in that falsehood stronger. Clashes with our idea that the truth always wins, doesn't it? And the final detail that connects it all. Remember when we talked about tribal loyalty and motivated reasoning? Well, neuroscience has discovered that when we hear arguments attacking our candidate or party, the areas of the brain that light up aren't the ones for cold reason, but the same ones that activate during a physical threat. Our brain processes an attack on our political ideas as if we were being physically attacked. Suddenly, it all clicks into place. This is why we react so emotionally, why we shut down, and why we forget the flaws of our own side. It's a defense mechanism. This level of detail gives us a much more compassionate and realistic view, don't you think? It's no longer about dumb voters, but about brains doing what they do best, protecting us and helping us navigate a complex social world. We've reached the edge of what is known. Do you dare to gaze into the final frontier? Let's imagine the future. 100 years from now, perhaps artificial intelligence could create a personalized political memory advisor, a system that reminds you, objectively and without bias, of the promises a politician made and their fulfillment record. Would we use such a tool? Or would we prefer the comfort of our selective amnesia? And this is where science stops and philosophy begins. If we could cure the voters' short memory, if we could make everyone remember everything with perfect clarity, would we create a better, more just society? Or would we create a society paralyzed by resentment, unable to forgive and move forward? Where is the balance between memory and forgiveness on a societal scale? The most dizzying philosophical implication is about our own identity. If our political opinions are so shaped by biases, tribes, and selective forgetting, to what extent are they truly ours? Are we the authors of our convictions, or are we merely the vehicles for psychological and social processes we barely understand? Think about it for a second. Who is really choosing when you vote? And this connects to the future of humanity. Problems like climate change require long-term solutions and present-day sacrifices. But our political brain, with its short-term memory and its focus on the now, is terribly ill-equipped to face them. Understanding and perhaps learning to hack our own political psychology could literally be the key to our survival as a species. And here's the final, most provocative idea for you. Perhaps democracy doesn't work in spite of the voters' short memory, but because of it. Perhaps forgetting is the oil that lubricates the gears of a social machine that would otherwise seize up under the weight of its own contradictions. And with that thought, our journey is complete. We've gone from the surface to the depths and back again. Now it's time to take in the big picture. At the beginning of this journey, we talked about that familiar idea that politicians take advantage of our poor memory to make us forget their scandals and broken promises. But look where we've ended up. We now know it's not simple poor memory. It's an incredibly complex ballet of rationalization, tribal loyalty, neural highways, and the brain's defenses against perceived threats. We've gone from blaming the voter to understanding the architecture of their mind. The transformation is incredible. And now I'm asking you directly. From this entire journey, from cognitive biases to philosophical implications, what's the one idea that struck you the most or made you see things in a completely new way? I'd love to read your thoughts. Thank you so much for your time and curiosity. Leave your answer in the comments because that's where the conversation truly comes to life. If you enjoyed this deep dive into knowledge, subscribe and hit the notification bell because we have many more planned for you. Thanks for joining me. Always keep questioning, always keep learning. The next time you vote, who's really in charge?